Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.
From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, culture change. Here to tell us more about it are Jay Leiter, an associate professor in communication studies and director for sustainability studies at Creighton University, and Carolina Padilla, executive director for the Intercultural Senior Center in Omaha. Thank you both so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
You bet. Jay, I want to start with you.
Okay.
How do you define culture?
I think that's a very difficult concept to define, and most people really want to know how they can see and hear culture, or when they experience it, what are they experiencing. So the idea I give students a lot of times is to say, imagine yourself in a situation that you recognize as a different culture than yours. What do you think you're noticing? And that's really where the definition might come from. And so I think of it as historically transmitted systems of symbols that are meaningful to us in our worlds. And so there's a couple parts of that definition. Cultures are both of the past and of the present. They are shared and public, and therefore we can learn them and we can observe them. And then the symbols that may be more important to some cultures, more meaningful to some cultures, are not obviously shared among others. And so when you're learning about cultures or experiencing culture, that's the kind of thing that you're experiencing. I think the thing to remember about cultures is that they often sit at the background of our experience, unless and until we're in a situation that we don't recognize. And so for most of our daily lives, if we're interacting with people who share kind of our cultural backgrounds, no issue. But when we come into contact with others who are different from us, or maybe even in other circumstances, there might be individuals who have to navigate more than one culture, then it becomes really salient to how we live our lives.
Interesting. Broad strokes. Let's talk about this in terms of groupings or regions. We have a graphic that we want to put up for our viewers while you talk about this.
Sure.
So all around the world, talk about that.
I think that the main thing to think about culture as a concept is that these big groupings really give us kind of the grounding for large-scale interpretations to make about who we are and how we relate to others. But really our daily lives are much more infused with interactions where we're experiencing culture all the time, or differences in culture. And so as might have been the case in our lives in the past, maybe we would have a predictable set of cultures that we would interact with in a given day. But as populations are moving for reasons that are positive, in some cases very negative, or as we become more connected through digital media with other communities, other people, other kinds of communication, that we are experiencing much more cultural difference. And so of those groupings, it's hard for me to say anything in particular about each one of them, but they are important to people in terms of how we relate to one another and how we think about who we are as individuals.
Okay, and what we are experiencing presently can be, I guess, more clearly realized if we go back in time. Let's talk American culture and talk about the most significant changes we've had over, say, the course of 50 years or so.
Sure. I teach a course in cultural communication, and we start by studying 3 communities that are in the United States. One is a predominantly working class neighborhood on the south side of Chicago that's mostly folks that are immigrants from European countries. Historically, we study an African American speech code or discourse that developed over the course of a couple of hundred years of our history in African American communities, and then we study Native American ways of speaking. And I would just point out that all of those are American ways of speaking and American cultures. maybe the thing that is, as I mentioned before, the perception might have been at one time 50 years ago that we wouldn't be interacting on a daily basis with people who are different from us. And I think that perception is gone. And I think that people are realizing that some kind of cultural sensitivity, some kind of cultural awareness about others, about how to interact with others, about how to learn from or be with others or conduct business with others is really the change that may have happened in the last 50 years.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk a little bit more about your opportunities. You are at Creighton University.
I am.
So how did you arrive there?
Well, I studied communication and culture at the University of Washington and have a faculty position in the Department of Communication Studies. And there are lots of folks that do what I do in communication, and we also have a cultural and social studies department that also studies culture. Most of the time what I've been spending my time researching and teaching about is how communities make decisions. And this is related to culture because if you think about even Omaha or communities across the state of Nebraska that people would come together and try to make choices about healthcare or education or environmental issues, those communities are full of people with very different perspectives. And I would study that from a communication and culture perspective because I think we can probably make better choices if we have some sense about how people are viewing the world differently, viewing who they are differently, viewing what their communities are differently, and trying to make choices anyway.
Okay, so how did you become interested in all of this?
That's a great question. I probably was noticing or experiencing growing up in the suburban communities and rural communities that as a kid I was around people who were different, and at one point I realized if I put all of those people in the same room, there might be something interesting that would happen. And so I just started paying attention to that. And then, through the course of graduate school and that sort of thing, really coming to understand that culture is expressed through our communication. Who we are is very much culturally influenced, and the ways that we communicate says a lot about who we, what groups we belong to, how we want to relate with one another, how we want to express ourselves. And so those concepts have just been always really important to me.
Okay, and a person sitting right to your right there obviously knows a lot about what you've been telling us here thus far. I think, Carolina, we hear a lot about culture change. It's just a matter of, and people wanting to do something about it, but actually doing something about it. They're two different things, right? You know all too well. Before we talk about the Intercultural Senior Center, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Guatemalan. Born and raised in Guatemala. I think it's life and the opportunity came for me to come here when I was very young. I went back home and then I came back, and my education is a little similar to what you do. Communications was for me the best, and so that's what I did in college. But so being in Omaha for 27 years, I've been working in a nonprofit for the past 27 years, and I think my attention was more toward the elderly, the aging population, being in South Omaha. And so, but at the same time, getting old doesn't mean it's one color of skin. Mm-hmm. It's everyone. And so I start learning where I was working at, there were many people that age that at the end of the day, they had the same needs, but it was a different culture. Mm-hmm. Everybody was different language, different color, different needs, different ways to eat or different ways to express themselves. And so I thought that was something that I could do, and I could support with my knowledge and how to create an environment that will bring together people from different backgrounds.
At what point in your life, Carolina, did you say, again, we can talk about it, but to actually do something about it, right? At what point in your life did you say, enough is enough? Do you remember that time in your life where you knew that you were going to take on this challenge? And
I think it was kind of from the beginning when the name was put together. Since I started the organization, the question to me was asked, so what do you want this organization to be someday? And even though for me it was like, oh my gosh, making this possible, in years, I don't know if it's going to be possible, but I said I want it to be very intercultural. I want people from different backgrounds to come to one place regardless of their socioeconomic status, regardless of countries they come from, or everything entires to that. And so I guess was the challenge for me, but I said, we'll make it possible. And now when I look back, I'm like, I don't know how the name came to me, but I just feel so fortunate to be able to say that I'm so glad that name was chosen, because I don't think for years to come is going to be the need to change it. Many challenges came since we started, because was mostly serving the Latino community. But as we grow, there were other people reaching out to us for the kind of work that I was doing. I think the biggest challenge for me was when I was approached to serve the refugee community in Omaha. And many people telling me, don't even think about it. The challenges, the work that it's going to be, but I never doubted. I said, we can make it happen. I mean, that's what we're here for. And for me, being Latina, I know how it feels. I knew that I could embrace people from other cultures, because, to be around, you have to change your shoes. You have to be within other people's shoes and see their needs. And I said, no, we can make it work. And I think we did it.
I think, I'm thinking right now, how? I mean, you're sitting here and you've done this and you've been so successful with it. But the big question is, how? You knew you could do it, but how did you get it done? And then my second question would be, you're one person. How do you get people on board with you to want to do the same things and think in the same way that you are, so that this thing can move forward? I mean, if you go back to the early days and you go back to those hurdles, what was it at the end of the day that got you over each of those hurdles?
I think most of it was having 3 children already. I wanted to be my children to feel inclusive into the community. So for me, it was just continue with that. But at the same time, I think what's important for me is that I was raised in a very family oriented, and being humble was the word that was always around. And I think that when you're that kind of person and you understand others and you don't change the way you are, that's what makes you successful.
Very good. Now, she threw out a word we're hearing a lot these days, Jay, in addition to culture change: inclusivity, right? So when somebody says, I want this organization to be inclusive, what is it that they're really saying?
I sometimes I'm not sure, but here's what I was going to say, that I think her comments are really important to point out, is that, earlier you were asking me about what is culture, and I have an answer to that, but I think the question is, why is that valuable? And the things that a lot of the folks that are doing work in social sciences and in community organizations, they're asking the question, what would I need to know about a community if I want to help that community to make it a better place? And then how would what I learn about that community change the way I might develop a program or do something? And so I study that from a cultural communication perspective and try to develop that kind of knowledge, so that if someone is interested in working with particular segments of a community, that they might learn something from them. And I think that inclusivity is really about that. It's really about an attitude of humility, as you've already mentioned. Maybe just suspending judgment for a little while about what you think you know about people and what they need, trying to learn what they need from their perspective. And again, from culture and communication are good concepts for that. And then shaping the way you work with them based on what you hear and what you learn. And so inclusivity in its best form, I think, is that. Sometimes it may not be that. It may simply be checking boxes of having certain people around the table, or not even that. But a genuine care for others includes humility and understanding and respect, and trying to learn from people instead of just intervening in people's lives without any kind of knowledge like that.
Yeah, and I think people, they really want to be inclusive, but there's also kind of a component of fear, right? If we say we're inclusive, that's kind of an invitation to everyone, and we don't know about everyone. I mean, Carolina, did you run into that when you were putting this center together of, okay, if I'm going to be welcoming to everybody, there might be a few people who come through my door that maybe strike a little bit of fear because I don't know about them, kind of that fear of the unknown. Did you have that at all?
Yeah, I think it was the most, for some time, was the overtaking why doing this for people that they have no voice here. And more, I'm talking more people that come from different backgrounds. You know, sometimes we feel so comfortable in our area because the people that are around us, it's people that we know, and you know how, I mean, how they manage their lives, what kind of lifestyle they have, what is it, the social life, or, you know, so simple how you dressed, you know, how you talk. I mean, it's scary for many people, and why to adjust myself to something when I am here and you have to adjust to who I am and where you're around it, and it's okay that. But I think that as the country is changing, I think we need to be more considerable in thinking and how would I be myself in those shoes, and how I want to be treated, you know, like you were saying, respect. And so I think that is, for many people might be hard because they don't want to change the way things have been for many years. But it will be becoming more, our culture is changing. People are coming from different places, different backgrounds. You know, the young families are coming with this other, a family that has been oriented in a different way, which is hard too because you want to fit in. You know, you don't want to change because you want to be accepted by others, but at the same time, you trying to get others to understand who you are and why you are that way. And I think for me, my organization, one of the most important things that I struggled was finding the person that, I mean, working at ISC that really understands what is culture about, that embraces that it's acceptance of that person and wanted to learn why things are that way. Okay, if you don't like something, I want to learn why, and I'm going to try my best to do it the way you like. We do a lot of intergenerational programming, and it's just beautiful and amazing how those kids growing up, I mean, they don't see the difference right now, but I'm seeing also that perhaps adults don't see it that way. You know, how can you? What do you do there? Or why is that? Why are they making you do this? I think it's hard for adults to understand that. I think that for our aging population, they're very open-minded. For some, others, it's like you were saying, it's my territory. You know, this is what I feel comfortable, and I don't want to change that. But I think as a community in general, regardless of any country you go, you travel, you see there is change. People are trying without having that much of the knowledge maybe, but trying to feel people more comfortable and better.
Yeah, and you're certainly doing that. We have some photos that we want to put up for our viewers as you kind of tell us about the center today so that people can actually see what it is that you're talking about. So walk us through these photos, Carolina.
So right here we are in an English as a second language class. So you can tell everybody is paying attention. Most of our seniors, they don't speak the English language, it's just learning the basic. And it's incredible how they come with their notebook every single day, and they write in their own ways what they learn. And it's, you know, in the group that you see is a group of seniors who are from Nepal and others from Bhutan. So the language is completely different. But having that opportunity, it makes them to speak and it makes them to learn. Cool. And for them, this is their second home because it's a place where they feel comfortable. They feel like we are accepting them the way they are. We know what they like. Even you know, when we present opportunities like this is an art class, and I think that because the language barrier, sometimes they cannot express themselves. By doing art, they can express how they feel, who they are and back home, how was life and how different is now, and they have to adjust because that's where they are, but they want to feel welcome.
Yeah. Okay.
Was a field trip, and everybody was sitting there, and it's kind of funny because they're playing loteria, and loteria is a Spanish or Latino kind of bingo, but they have learned to play it together, and even if it is with pictures, sometimes you can see some are seniors speaking Spanish, others Korean, other Nepali, the basic of the words because they see each other, and it really touches your heart when you see them coming in the mornings, how they hug themselves, how they accept themselves, because there is some bond in there. Is we coming from different countries and we need to work together and be together. And they learn, they're playing pool in their life. They ever had that opportunity, but they do it. And so I think ISC is a place that has become for those who feel a little away from the society, but they want to be part of something. And so this is the opportunity they have there.
Well, and many folks taking notice of the Intercultural Senior Center, including a face that many of our viewers are likely to recognize. Talk about the visit from Warren Buffett.
So that was during the time of the elections, and there was a conversation going on at that time that how important it was to have the votes of our elderly, because they are the ones who can be the teachers of the younger generations. And so we had his visit at the center, and through interpreters, he communicated with the rest of the seniors that were in that day. For most of us, we knew who he was, or who he is in that moment. And for most of our seniors, they didn't know. He was just somebody else that was telling them, you need to speak up, you need to give your voice, you need to give your own opinions and say what you like and what you don't like. And so it was an amazing time because he had a time to sit down with each one of the tables that we had, and through interpreters they could communicate. So I think this is something to remember, that people from all ages and all different backgrounds, they recognize how important it is to be the voice of the elderly, but most importantly, how strong those people are in our community, that they open the opportunities for the younger generations to learn and to be aware that we, instead of making our seniors to be silenced, give them a chance to speak up.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jay, you have a son and daughter, both of whom have been to the Intercultural Senior Center. What were their impressions?
I mean, I think that's exactly what she's talking about. It's an educational opportunity to participate in two kinds of cultural interaction. One is intergenerational, and I think that having young people interact with seniors really open their eyes to really humanizing maybe people that they wouldn't have interacted with on another basis. And then also, I think they recognized right away it's an intercultural senior center, and so it would be easy to sort of say that everyone who's there, but they come from such a wide range of backgrounds, as Carolina mentioned, and so they noticed all of the language differences among the participants in the program, and really appreciated how, these people were interacting with each other and showing appreciation for each other and for the students that were guests. So they had a really nice experience when they were there.
Awesome. Now, Carolina, looking forward, what's next for the Intercultural Senior Center?
Wow. I think that we have big dreams for the organization. We just moved to a new location. After 10 years from jumping from place to place, finally we got a permanent home. And even with a short time being there for 6 months, we have seen the increased number of all kinds of people and seniors of age. They're coming to us because they are trying to find a place where they don't feel lonely, where they can feel they are someone in the community. And so the opportunity is not just for the educational institutions, but it's also people in the community that we need to embrace this whole Omaha community as a place where diversity should be welcome. We need to be more inclusive. Stop that saying maybe oh, this is too much for us, we cannot do this, we're thinking about it. I think that when the moment comes, I think that we should take risks. You know, I mean, it's a risk doing whatever we do, but if we don't do that, we cannot speak for. And so that's, I think, what happened to us is we, little by little, we're moving forward and saying, you know, how much we're capable to doing, but we're not afraid to try. And I think that's what has made ISC successful. Wow. So I think opening more opportunities for people to come to us and see what we can do together, even if we're not doing it right now, what is the possibility? How we can be part of you and you can be part of us.
Wow. Very well said. I want to put up some websites for viewers who are wanting more information about this program. So there's connect.state.gov, Creighton.edu, of course, that's where Jay is, and interculturalseniorcenter.org, which is what Carolina has been talking about today. I want to thank you both for sharing your time, your expertise, and your stories. I want to wish you very well moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to the students. Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
Thanks to all these students who are working so hard behind the scenes, and of course to our viewers for watching. As we close, a look at UNO's recently renovated Strauss Performing Arts Center, as seen through the lens of Owen Godberson, a senior here at UNO. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.
Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.